now for the whole reason that you are here, and we have a great little introduction here. So Ron and Sue Rescigno have spent close to 30 years working with nonprofits nationwide, helping them to create and improve their annual fund programs. They believe the annual fund is the foundation of any comprehensive development program, and they have created a process to strategically build the annual fund so that it runs like a well-oiled machine. So I will hand it over to the experts now.
Thank you very much. Okay, so why don't we get started here? But before we get started, I want you to know that we really would love your input as we go through this, okay? And there's not a lot of us, so we can make this conversational. We do have a lot of material, but I would prefer if you guys have specific questions and stuff, please feel free to just chime in anytime, okay? So just like Tammy said, this is just to give you an idea of who we are and what we do. We are annual fund experts. Those are the types of things we do. We do planning and strategy, copywriting, we do major gift campaigns, all of these things that you see up here. That is what we do. That's what we've been doing for 30 years.
So we should be experts.
We should be experts by this point, right? So we just want to give you a little bit of background on what we actually do. Okay. Many people ask us this question, why annual fund? I truly believe, the bottom of my heart, that, and you can see this, the annual fund, you've all seen this pyramid before, right? Some sort of pyramid like this, I hope? Okay, so the annual fund is the bottom of the foundation, or I'm sorry, it's the foundation of the pyramid. It's all those, it's your donor acquisition program, it's your ongoing annual support, it's major annual donors. Without that, you cannot have a solid fundraising program. This is where the major gifts come from. That's where your prospects come from. That is why we teach and we coach on annual fund.
And Sue, if I can just add there, can't tell you how many times I'm in conversations with people and I'm talking to them about their annual fund, and they say, well, we're concentrating on major gifts and bequests and estate planning and planned giving. And I say to them, well, where do you think you can find more of them than anyone else? It's in the bottom, the foundation of this donor pyramid. The major annual donors there come from people who give to you every time you ask, people who give you increased gifts, are your best major gift prospects, right? That's something that doesn't always equate with a lot of people. They just want to do major gifts without any building of relationships. It's down here that you start to build the relationships that show you who your major annual donors could be.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to be talking about, let me ask you this question. How many of you are currently in fundraising right now? Okay, so you're actually doing it. Okay. Just starting to. Okay, that's fine. All right. So some of this may be new to you. Some of this for other people, it may be things that you've done for years. Ron wrote this book on a process. And the reason, and it's an Amazon bestseller. You should try to get it. It's a really nice read, but it really lays out this whole process for you. So what we're going to do in this presentation is we could actually spend an hour or two on each one of these steps in the process, but the whole idea is we want you to think of this differently. I don't want you to think of the annual fund as, well, we do 3 appeals a year, or we do 4 appeals, or we do 12 appeals. That's not an annual fund. An annual fund encompasses a lot of other things that we're going to be talking about. So we want you to look at the whole thing, okay? Look at it as a process. All right. This is the step, the whole idea of today is I'm going to talk about these, and we're going to go into a little bit of detail for each one. The first step in the process is discovery, okay? Then you look at your data. And discovery would be, and I'm going to talk about it more, but discovery is like, you find out what you're doing and what's happening, and if you're new to an organization, what are they currently doing? Data. Everything starts with the data, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about creating a plan. We go into organizations all the time, and they do not have a written plan. I don't care if your plan is 3 pages long, as long as it's written down. So if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, somebody knows what you were doing. There has to be an acknowledgement program, and this is where people kind of get lost on they forget steps. There has to be a donor loyalty program. You have to be analyzing results, and then you go back to the discovery. So we're going to talk about each one of these things in a little bit of detail. Discovery. Okay, our first step. What are you currently doing for your annual fund program? Honestly, just like I said before, some people are going to say, well, we just do these mailings. We do 3 solicitations. Again, I want you to look at it as the bigger picture, okay? How many communications are you actually sending to your donors and prospects? These are just some questions of discovery. Is what does your acquisition program look like? Do you have an acquisition program? What are your retention rates? So discovery is exactly what you think it is. If somebody calls us in to work with them on their program, we have to figure this, and we have a list of a lot more questions. A lot more is in the book, but I just want to give you an idea. And please, I always like to say this: if you are new to a organization and just stepping in, please look at what they've already created. Instead of trying to recreate the wheel. I think we've all seen that happen before, and I'm sure that there's smart people in these positions, and they move on to other positions. Look at what they've currently done. There's no sense in you trying to do everything new.
Before you go to that next slide, just real quickly, how many communications are you sending to your donors and prospects? You should be sending out direct mail, email, on your website, invitations. You should be communicating with your donors 7 to 10 times per year minimum. All direct mail? No, it doesn't have to be. Email, social media, but 7 to 10 times if you're looking to engage them, which is what this whole business is about.
Okay. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about data, pen analysis, and donor profiling. This would be the next step. So first you figure out what's happening, like what are we currently doing. Second step is your data. You can't do anything without examining your data. It's so important to know. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just, and we say data is key, okay? And it is, it is the most significant factor. If you're looking for a successful campaign, but you're not communicating with the right people, your campaign's you're not gonna get the results, right? I mean, that's just common sense. So we need to make sure the data's right, and how do you do that? Okay, so this is a process that hopefully, how many of you are currently doing like solicitation letters? Okay, all right, okay, a couple of you, all right. And do you use a mail house for those? Okay, all right. So you should be aware then of what NCOA is, right? Okay, so NCOA is just National Change of Address, and if you work with a mail house, they are actually required by law to send that list through NCOA. And NCOA is just National Change of Address. So everybody who fills out that little yellow form when they move, or go online and they fill it out saying that they moved, that's all connected with the post office. Those addresses would all be updated before you send any mail out. That's a simple cleanse to your mail. They standardize the addresses. What I like to remind people about, though, is an enhanced NCOA. is removing deceased. They will not do that unless you ask them to do it, and it costs a little bit more money. But those are ways, like some people have lists. Those of you who haven't done this before, some of you have lists. You can send this through NCOA and remove the deceased. You always want to make sure you remove duplicates. That's just a standard thing that should be done all the time, especially before you're going to do an appeal or any sort of communication, if you're sending newsletters or whatever. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about a wealth screening. So wealth screenings will give you lots of information, and we think this is very important when you're doing an annual fund, because a wealth screening will give you information on whether or not that is an annual fund prospect or a major gift prospect. Okay, we find that from the wealth screenings. It also gives us the ability to know how much to ask them for. Okay, you can increase your average gift by knowing. We get asked this question all the time, right? What do we ask non-donors for? Well, the only way we can answer that question is we go by national averages. So the average national gift is $50, right, for new donors. So, or if we do a wealth screening, I might find out that they have the capacity to give you $250 a year. So why in the world would I ask for $50 if I could ask for $250? Understand? So that's why the wealth screening is so important. And for the annual fund, some people just think it's for major gifts, and that's not the case. Okay, and then the rest of this just goes through the donor rating. So all of that you can get from the wealth screening. So the whole idea here is that the data is so important when you're sending out any communications. You want to make sure that you're sending them to the right people, right? I love this slide that explains data, because I think most of the people I meet, their data is just like it is at the top there, right? And that's how they feel it is, and they don't feel they have control of it. It gets sorted out, arranged. We present it visually in report form, and then we can explain. So I just love that.
I had a conversation with someone the other day that all of their data was on spreadsheets.
Right.
And that's what this is
right.
all about. You need to get it formulated and made into something that you can tell a story about.
So you can use it.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So there's another reason why donor profiling is so important. Okay. Has anybody ever done any sort of donor profiling? Do you know what I mean by that? Okay. All right. I know you do a lot in annual fund, and that's great. So please feel free, because you could probably share a lot of good information. So please feel free. Okay. So when you do a donor profiling, a lot of times you should know what your average donor looks like. Okay. So you want to know what they look like. So when you're trying to acquire new donors, and it may be in your own database, that you try to acquire new donors that look like your current donor. So what does that mean? So we did a donor profile for the Diocese of Joliet. This was pretty funny. And Diocese of Joliet, it's the largest diocese right outside of the Archdiocese of Chicago, right? In Illinois. I think that's what it is. And we had worked with the executive director there. He had inherited a list, okay? So he inherited this list. He was doing okay with his annual fund, but he called us and he said, this annual fund, he said, I'm doing okay, but it's stagnant. It's been, I inherited this list. I don't know anything about this list. I said, let's do some work on this list. And what he found out, and I know in these types of things, you find out like the average age of your donor, the average income level, their wealth, different things. You can find out religion and all this stuff. So Diocese of Joliet, and they found out that his average donor was Protestant, right? I thought that was funny too. about this, and we got such a big kick out of it. But you don't know. You don't know. So when he wanted to purchase, you can purchase like a list of names that are similar, donors, known donors. You can purchase a list like that. We would have purchased Catholic, right? Well, we purchased Catholic and Protestant when he wanted to expand the list. Okay? And this is another client that we actually did a case study on because it was really great. He came to us with a list of 30,000. We did this whole process that I'm explaining to you. We cut his list to 15,000. I'm not kidding. The night before we were going to drop that mail, he said to me, Sue, I'm scared. Like, oh my God, I'm scared. What happens? And I said, you have to believe in the process. It works. So what we did was we narrowed it down. We communicated with the right people. That's what we did. We had wealth information on them. We asked them for larger gift amounts. He raised more money that year than he had done the whole time he had been there. And then it continued to increase by acquiring new names. So that's why it's important to do that. Anybody have any questions on the data portion? Any comments? Anybody think I'm crazy?
I hope that this is the kind of stuff that you came to this presentation to hear about. How the process works and why it's successful.
Okay. Good. Yes. Good to hear.
Thank you.
That's good. Because you're going through the necessary steps. Good to hear. Okay, so the next step in the process then is let's create a plan. And this is where you talk about the messaging, segmentation, and timing.
And what kind of a plan are we talking about? Thank you, a written plan.
Oh, yeah, good.
So, projects that fail will fail without a solid plan, deadlines, consistent follow-up with measurements throughout the project, and a clearly understood shared vision of what success looks like at the end. That is a quote from 10KSB, 10,000 Small Business Program, that I'm proud to say my partner Sue is a graduate of that program, and we live by this actually. You have to have a plan, and it's got to have the measurements and shared vision of what success. You've got to have goals and objectives that you're trying to reach.
Yeah, Ryan, and let me just add, like, what success means. Like, I can't tell you, we've actually started this process with many organizations, and success is looked at differently by different people. Like, you might have, a boss who thinks that your first year starting, an annual fund program is going to bring in lots of money. But you may think, no, I'm creating awareness, and I'm setting up my donor database, or the database. I'm doing all these other things, and that's what success and the milestones would be for you. So that's really important to know what your goals are and to have you all on the same page.
And I am willing to bet right now that if you work at all with your board of directors, that there are members of your board who think, if not say out loud, instead of doing all this, why don't you just ask Oprah? That'd be much simpler, and she's ready to give to you, or whomever who has that kind of means. Unfortunately, for 99.9% of nonprofit organizations, it doesn't work that way. So there's an investment involved in doing it this way. There's work involved, but it works.
The other thing, Ron, just because you said that,
Yeah.
So before I started the business, I was in fundraising for 12 years. And so the thing about the written plan that I love, and I love to tell this to everybody, because I know it's really hard, because even as a business owner, we have to have plans too, and I know sometimes it's hard for me to get it all in writing, so I totally get it. But here's the thing I love about having a written plan. When you're in those board meetings or when you're working with, I've worked with some bosses that had like wild ideas, and it was like every day she was switching direction on me, and it would make me crazy. If you have a plan, you can answer like, that's a great idea. You know, we've got the plan all set for this year, and maybe we can discuss that next year, right? And you have the written plan, and you can share that with them. I love that idea. So, okay.
And I just have to say, you know, I was, before Sue started this business, I was a Catholic high school teacher, and then Catholic high school dean of students, Catholic high school principal, and I was in Catholic high schools for 23 years, and then one day, Sue walked into the school that I was at that was about to close, Josephinum High School, Humboldt Park in Chicago, inner city. And little did I know that it was going to take us on this path to being people who work with other nonprofit organizations, but it was always, it's a shared passion that we have for helping nonprofits, especially religious nonprofits, doing this kind of work. So it's something we're very passionate about.
Right.
One more thing, and if I didn't do this, I'd be mad at myself. Abraham Lincoln once said, if you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 sharpening my axe. That's what that plan we're talking about, that's the way you should think of the plan. You sharpen that axe, you sharpen that plan, you get it fine-tuned, you follow it to its completion, and it works. Okay. Fundraising letters, direct mail letters, everyone, are the top source of new gifts to charities in America. Do I have any pushback on that? Fantastic. I won't wait for you to think about it. Fundraising letters that you receive in the mail are still today, in spite of the fact that everybody says direct mail is going to die, direct mail is dead. No, it's not. In fact, it's gone full circle, and people now actually report that they appreciate getting that tangible piece of mail in their mailbox every night. And when you think of it in terms of how many emails you get in the course of a day, as opposed to the 6 pieces of mail maybe that you get in your mailbox in the evening, there's something special about that. And it's the top source of new gifts to nonprofits, to charities in America today.
Right. So that does not mean that we don't agree that you should be doing the emails and the social media. We should. I mean, and we do agree with that. So just so you know that it all works together. But this is very interesting research, and they just keep coming out. And it actually, during the pandemic, that was a huge thing, because so many people, email addresses, you don't know that you're reaching, and I don't know, unless somebody has a better idea or like has done more email. But our clients had a lot of problems reaching everybody when they had to get the message out. So you use email, but then you find out that you don't have all your donor or all of the emails for all your constituents. So it's real, and this is what they're saying. So we pay attention to this. Right.
And to just piggyback off of that, direct mail letter preceded by an email saying you are about to receive, or you're going to receive, the story of little Joni who lost her parents, and that kind of a story. And then another one after the direct mail piece drops into the homes. We see that doing that increases giving. Not just the direct mail piece alone, but integrated with the direct mail.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of what you're saying, just an interesting fact. Do you know if you purchase an email list, they will only guarantee it to be 25% correct. 25, like we advise not to do it. That's crazy. When you do mail addresses, physical addresses, it's like a 95% guarantee. I mean, why? And it's expensive to get email addresses. Yeah. Were you gonna say something? Okay, so that all depends on what segment you're sending it to. So what I mean by that is, do you mean donors or do you mean non-donors? Okay. That haven't contributed? Okay, so you should expect for non-donors, and this is 0.5 to 1.5%. That's the national average. If you're sending mail to donors who are currently giving, each mailing should be between 7 and 9. I've gotten upwards of 15 to 34 during the holidays. And so, but that can vary. But for non-donors, it's much different. The whole idea, though, is trying to build that. We're going to talk about results and analyzing and what you should be keeping track of. You should definitely segment them. If you're not segmenting your mail, you definitely should,
Yeah.
because otherwise you're not going to get good response
And
rates.
if you've been sending to the same list for years and years and to the same people who don't give for years and years, Sue just used the example a little bit ago of convincing the executive director at the Diocese of Joliet to cut that list. Much less expensive, too. Yes?
I just have one comment. Our list has, donors and non-donors, but they're all friends. And what I see for some non-donors is that they'll leave an estate there. So they may never remain a donation,
Right,
but they'll leave an estate there. So I don't want them all.
right.
And I think we can segment them and keep an eye on it, but to me, it's, kind of a mission of, they're your friends. I don't think they put something.
And if you know that they have the capacity and the affinity to give at some point, as opposed to quote-unquote complete strangers, definitely, I agree with you. By the way, I think, Sue, we should say that the young lady passing out the candy in the back there
Oh,
is Jessie Rescigno, who is a project manager at Rescignos.
right.
Good
Okay.
job, Jess.
So why don't we talk about the messaging?
Okay, these are questions that you should take a look at this, especially those of you who are actively involved in appeals right now. Does your appeal use the same message in your letter? It should be cohesive. On your website, in your email, on social media. In other words, if there's a story in your appeal about a person or a family, that should be referenced in the email. It should be on your website. Check out the story for the appeal. Make it cohesive, okay? Not disjointed. Make it about the one person being talked about. Focus more on your donors than on your non-donors' accomplishments. We are big on this, everybody. It's not about what your organization does. Really, it's not. It's about what donors help your organization accomplish. And every piece of communication you send out should reflect that message. Why? Because that message is going back. When you communicate with your donors, they see that you appreciate their support. Make it about not what you do, about what they allow you to do. You need to make a specific ask. If you say in your letter, please give a gift of $15, $25, or $40, 90% of the time you're going to get the $15. 75, 100, 125, you're going to get the $75. Do not give donors a choice. Specific amount based on their last gift, but don't say whatever you can afford would be nice. Don't do that, because you depress giving. And I know this is an issue when it comes to a lot of, especially religious organizations. They don't want to seem greedy, pushy, money hungry. That's the business you're in when you're doing development. You're not in the business of being money hungry, but you need that support, right? So you need to ask, and you need to ask specifically. Why is it important to prioritize current donors over new donors? Why prioritize? Don't you want new donors? Yeah, we all want new donors. But it's easier to get a current donor, a donor who has already showed that they care about what you do, get them to continue to give, than it is to get somebody who's never given before to start to care about what you do. Prioritize the relationships you already have with donors who already give to you. Pay more attention to them than you do to, there's a saying, acquire or expire. Keep getting new donors or you're going to die. Acquisition is important, very important, but not more important than keeping the donors you already have. Explain to new donors, this is how you keep new donors, how their first gift makes a difference. Explain the impact of the gift when you send them a thank you. Your gift will do, or your gift is already doing. We're going to talk more about that. Does your appeal tell a story? Your appeal should not be 19% this, 27. It shouldn't be percentages. It should not be statistics. It should be a story of a person or a family that your organization helped, or of a person or of a family in need of help, so that the donor can see there's opportunity here. Opportunity for me to do something good. Donors say when they give, it makes them feel good. That's why you ask more than once in a calendar year.
What's the number one reason why people give?
Come on, so easy.
What would be the first thing you think of? Why do people give? That is one of the top 10 reasons, but it's not the number one. Pardon me?
Yes.
Ask. Exactly. Right.
Because they were asked.
Right.
You've got to ask.
That's your job, to give people the opportunity to do good in the world. That's our jobs as fundraisers.
We get told that, oh, we're going to just combine a newsletter and put a return envelope in there. That's our appeal. No, it's not. That's not an appeal. That's you trying to do something on the cheap. Be honest with you. You've got to do appeals separately from impact reports, separately from newsletters.
You'll get a much better response if you do.
Use photos, upper right-hand corner, a photo of the person making eye contact with the recipient of the letter, the person who the story is about, or family that the story is about. It's not dear friend, it's not dear donor, it's dear first name. It's as a volunteer, it's as a member of the engineering department for a university, for example, a graduate of the engineering department. I've alluded to this. Talk about opportunities that the donor has to help, to make an impact, to make a difference in the community by their support. Don't talk about what you need. Donors truly don't respond to, oh, we need this or we're going to close, or we need this or the bricks are going to fall out of the building. That's not fundable. It's opportunities donors have to feel good and to do good for others. Don't talk about, oh, we've got two great stories. We're going to include both in our appeal. Readability studies show you do that, and readers don't respond as well as one story, one person, one family. Emphasize how the donor is helping to change lives, or can help to change lives. All important in your appeal letters. Talk about the impact, the difference individual gifts have on the organization's ability to better the lives of those they serve. What you're doing is you're making the donor the hero. Not your organization, but the donor, giving them the possibility, the opportunity to be a hero. And here's just a way of looking at letters that we try to help with the clients that we have. What do readers do when they open up an envelope when they get home at night and it's an appeal letter? They look at headlines. They look at call-out boxes before they ever begin to read the letter. They look at sentences that are bolded or underlined or highlighted. That's what the reader's eye is drawn to. All of those things, and if all of those things are present and appealing, as well as a photo, then they may decide, let me see what the first paragraph says. But even before all of that is the PS. The PS in an appeal letter is read first 90% of the time. 90% of the time. Always include repeat your ask in the PS. Always, always, always. Because if they decide not to read the letter, and many of them decide not to read your so well-written letter that took how many hours to compose, they will look to see in the PS how much you're asking for. You want to ask at least twice in your letter, once in the PS, once in the body of the letter with a specific amount.
Okay. Okay. Any questions on that?
Well, I just want to add that one thing that I've learned over the years is that in working with volunteers, sometimes it's hard for them to forget a fundraising letter, which sometimes breaks communication rules.
Yes.
Or they don't like to share it, they don't like to hold it, they don't like certain things to be. So you have to kind of work together to, educate each other.
You are absolutely right. And we work with a lot of clients who their marketing departments will kind of like draft the letter, but then they'll have us copy edit and put in, we'll turn it into a fundraising letter. You're absolutely right.
There is a science to a marketing letter as opposed to a fundraising letter, right? They're really two separate ways of writing. So thank you for that.
All right, let's talk quickly about segmentation, because this is such a big part of it. You can segment your list in many different ways. Here's just some different ideas: volunteers, family and friends, board members, alumni, event attendees. A lot of people talk about how it's really hard to turn an event person into a direct mail annual gift person. Acknowledge that they're event people. Acknowledge it in the letter. You will increase your response rates. You will take those 0.5 to 1.5 response rates and get 3 to 4 with event people. You just have to speak to them in a different version of the letter. And here's just an example. We work with the Jesuits, the Midwest Jesuits, and this was just something we did for them, for volunteers. And I'm really saying, like, you do one basic letter, and then you swap out a paragraph or two, okay? I'm so grateful for this chance to say thank you for your generous support of. You always remind them what they have given in the past, what their last gift was.
Why? Why, Sue?
Because the donors, when they are surveyed, they forget. They honestly forget. So you're going to put the last gift amount in there, and then you're saying to volunteers, as well as your generous gift of time. So you're telling them right there that you know that they're a volunteer, that they're writing this really to me. The same thing with lapsed donors. You guys, this works. Lapsed donors, we call them recently lapsed, in the last 5 years. If you do this, you will increase your response rates by 2 to 3%. I'm so grateful for this chance to say thank you for your past support of whatever, $100 on, and you state the date. Why, Ron? Because when donors are surveyed, they say things like, I didn't realize I stopped giving. I didn't realize I didn't give last year. Oh my goodness, I haven't given in 3 years. What's happened? So you want to do that. But here's the thing. We haven't heard from you in a while, and we miss you. Say that to your lapsed donors. They want that. It works. It works.
And you know what else works with lapsed donors? If you also insert the word, not only have we missed your financial support, but we have missed your spiritual support.
There you go.
that works also with religious organizations, believe it or not.
Okay, so now we've gone through steps of the process. You've got your data, you've got your plan, your messaging, you've got that appeal out. You have to acknowledge, you have to have an acknowledgement program, okay? So, Ron, you want to take
Yep.
that?
So, the goal of any acknowledgement program is so simple. It's to build relationships with your donors. That's why you do acknowledgments. We're going to give you 4 P's to remember here. The first one being be prompt. 24 to 72 hours after you get the gift. You've got to acknowledge the gift. You've got to be sending out an acknowledgement that you have received the gift. Be personal. It's not dear friend, it's not dear donor, it should be dear first name. And it should refer back to the story from which the gift came. Be powerful. Talk about what the gift is going to do or what the gift from the donor will do, what the impact of that support will be. And you know what? Your phone is probably the most important tool, certainly one of the most important tools you have in the acknowledgement process. Penelope Burke, fundraising expert, says, phone calls that are made simply to thank donors for their support within 24 to 48 hours of receiving a gift results in those donors giving 39% more the next time you ask versus donors who don't receive a phone call. I can't be making 300 phone calls. I'm too busy. Use your board who are reluctant to help in fundraising. It's an easy way for them to help in fundraising. Use your volunteers, those that you know will do a good job on the phone. Use your staff. When you do it that way, it doesn't all fall on the executive director or whomever.
Okay, here's a couple of different ideas for you, just how to thank your donors in different ways. But of course, you're going to do the acknowledgement letters. You can do handwritten notes. If they communicate with you through email, it's fine to send an email to them thanking them. You probably also want to do something else, but that's okay. Videos sometimes, and the videos don't have to be expensive videos. They can be really off of your phone. Personal videos are so nice. Repeat donors, I always like to remind people of this. If hopefully you have an acknowledgement program, remember if somebody gives every time you send a mail piece out, I love those kind of people. They send $100 every time you send something, and it's so cute, right? But you don't want to thank them the same way every time, so just be aware of that. I want to be conscious of our time, Ron. Okay. All right. No, that's okay. All right. I created this scenario because I truly believe that it is not possible for you to thank everybody, every gift, right, in the same way. And I have clients that try to do that. Create scenarios for your different giving levels, and that's going to be your acknowledgement program. This is just an example of what it could be, but you might do that for your $500 people or your $1,000 people, and you do something different for your $100 people.
And so for $5,000 scenario, we'd have more added to it.
Exactly, and there'd probably be something from the executive director and things like that, right? Okay, donor retention and loyalty. You guys, I just have to bring this up quickly. Does anybody know what their retention rates are? No. Okay. The national average is 45.5%. That means that you are only keeping 45% of your donors. That's the national average, and that's madness. That means every year you have to work twice as hard to get new donors. That's crazy. So what should they be? They should be 70 to 80%. Okay, I'm just going to show you this very quickly because it's kind of one of these slides, one with a bunch of numbers, they always scare me. But honestly, if you find out your retention rates and you just say, I'm going to increase them by 10%, this is the difference it can make. If your original retention rate is 41% and you start with 5,000 donors and you only have a 41% retention rate, that means year 2, you're only working with 2,050 donors. In year 3, you're at 841. So those 5,000 donors at a 41% retention rate would last you 10 years. If you increased it to 51%, those 5,000 donors that you started with, the second year would be 2,500 compared to 2,000. Okay? And you would have them for 14 years, and you raise a total of 1.2 million. A difference of almost $500,000 just by spending some time on retention. Okay, I cannot stress how important that is.
And the thing about donors who you retain longer is that they take less effort and fewer marketing dollars. They are people who will participate in your capital campaigns. They contribute above average gifts, and perhaps most importantly, they will talk to new donors about getting them to give to your organization. They recruit new donors for you. So let's talk real quickly about first-time gifts. We alluded to it earlier. Only 19%, only 1 out of every 5 new donor ever gives a second gift. But if you can get a new donor to give a second gift, 63% of second-time donors are going to give you a third, a fourth, and a fifth gift, and so on. Well, what do I do to get that second gift? There are a lot of things you can do to get a second gift. You can thank the donor promptly. You know, donors feel good after they give. Thank them promptly. Reinforce that good feeling. Provide information that proves you're financially healthy. No one wants to give to an organization that they're not sure in the messaging if they're going to stay open or not, and you got to give or else. That's not that kind of a message, but a financially healthy message. By being active on social media, by sending regular newsletters and mailings, impact reports, newsletters, different things throughout the course of the year. Get donors involved with event opportunities, volunteer opportunities, and you've got to do that within a 90-day period with new donors. First-time gift, you've got a 90-day period to engage them. Invite them to events, volunteer opportunities at your organization. I don't know what those are. You would know for your organization. If you do that, what you're doing is you're priming the pump for the next time that you make for the time when you make the second ask. If you don't ask before the end of that 90-day period, those first-time donors are not going to give to you again because predominantly they're going to forget that they ever gave you the first gift. You've got to engage with them early.
All right, let's move into the last step in the process, which is the results analysis. You guys should be keeping track of what the appeal was, the date, the appeal code, but most importantly, look at the audience on this. You want all those versions, the segmentations we're talking about, you want to look at each one of them individually, calculate the total count that you sent out, what the average, what the number of responses and total gifts. That'll give you your average gift and then your response rates. That's a very simple Excel spreadsheet. You can see on the bottom, you can be keeping track of number of $1,000 gifts, number of new donors, things like that are always really interesting. But the reason why you want to do this is because every year you want to do comprehensive ones. Like if you have 3 appeals that you do, you want to be looking, oh, the year end did much better than the spring. Well, the spring is only supposed to bring in half of what the year end does. So is that good? Is that not? We did this other one in the summer. That worked really well. Or we did another one in May and that didn't go over. You want to be paying attention so each year you can edit your plan.
This is what we do with our clients for each of their mailings.
And then this is just very quickly, that's just, you should always calculate your cost per piece too. So there you go. That is the whole process. Look at it as a whole. If you're interested, if there's any questions, we're happy to answer any questions. And you can always get Ron's book on Amazon. So if you're interested, he goes into more detail on a lot of this. It was a lot to put in. I'm sorry. I hope I wasn't I hope it wasn't like, oh. But do you have any questions or comments? I know you all have to leave. Yes. 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 That's a great idea. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Anybody else?
Thank you, guys.
Okay, all right. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.